Hey there, career seekers. Welcome to Find Your Passion Career. I'm here to help you find a career you like, and dare I say, possibly even love. I'm your host, Amanda Nachman. I'm the founder and CEO of College Magazine. After working with thousands of college students, I've noticed that when it comes to career, there's a lot to demystify. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Today I have with me Lori Bumgarner. She's been a career coach for over 20 years, first serving college students, then Nashville up-and-coming recording artists, and now those who are mid-career in various industries and locations. She's the author of several books, including her most recent book on personal branding. She's been published in the Huffington Post and Inc. and featured in the Wall Street Journal. Lori has been ranked a top 10 coach by expertise.com for the past 5 consecutive years. Welcome to the podcast, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah. Okay. So from college students to recording artists, how did you imagine your career being when you first started out? Like looking back.
Not like this at all. Looking back, when I started college, I knew what I wanted to study. However, I did not know what I wanted to do with that degree, but I was really interested in psychology, and I knew that if I wanted to do well in school, that I needed to study something I was interested in. And so I thought, I'll figure it out as I go, but I really just want to delve into the coursework and see what possibilities might be there. At the same time, I worked on campus, both in the provost's office and in one of the dean's offices. And I also did orientation leadership. So I was an orientation leader for incoming freshmen. And I just really liked the campus setting. I liked working in the offices on college campus. And I really enjoyed learning about the organizational structure of higher education. And so
was that all while you were an undergrad, you were getting these experiences? That's amazing. Yes. So you really took advantage of those opportunities while you were on campus.
Yes. Well, and I don't think it was very intentional at the time. I just kind of, I had a roommate who had a job on campus and they were looking for another person in the office. I'm like, well, I'll apply and see if I get it. And that's when I started learning about the structure. And then, the opportunity to be an orientation leader came up. It's like, yeah, I really enjoyed my own orientation experience and making that transition to university and to college. And so it's like, I'd love to help other students do that. And so signed up for that, applied, and got accepted to be an orientation leader. And then that's when I started thinking, I really like working with students. I like working on a college campus. And so I went to my dean of students and did what I did not know at the time was an informational interview, but it was just that. It was very informal. And I just went to him and said, hey, how do I get a job like yours? And so that's when he said,
that's amazing.
Yeah. He's like, you need a master's degree if you want to do that and you want to move up. And so I started exploring different programs, different master's level programs for higher ed administration. And once I was in higher ed, then I got the opportunity to explore different avenues within higher education. And from that, my coursework, my assistantship, internship opportunities, and practicum on campus, I narrowed down to 3 areas. One was student orientation, freshman orientation programs, also freshman seminar, like University 101 courses, and career services, because all of those were related to student transition, whether into college or out of college. And I really fell in love with the career services piece. So I focused my job search on all 3 of those areas while excluding the areas outside of that, because I did have an assistantship in housing and I knew I did not want a 24/7 job.
Housing is probably like summer camp where you are on all the time. I can relate to that, having worked at summer camp. Okay, so you found what you loved. And I absolutely love that you reached out to the dean and just said, how do I do what you do? Which is exactly what, young professionals need to do. Obviously, you had this relationship with the dean where you felt like you could just be super candid. But I do think that most people in these, higher positions are open to hearing like, hey, I really admire what you do. Like, how could I potentially follow that same route?
Yes, that's
And
true. But I will say this, I did not know him personally before I set up that appointment with him.
oh, that's
I just
great.
knew of him because, he was over the orientation program, but he was not someone I'd interacted directly with before then. And what's funny is that I still keep in touch with him today.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Well, okay. So how did you break into, working with artists?
Oh, good question. So I was working in career services at a university here in Nashville. When I moved here and took that job, my intention all along was to stay in higher education. But when I got that job, that was the first time in my career that my creativity was really being stifled. Because before I'd always been able to be creative in creating programs for students to get them interested in job search. Because, most students aren't flocking to the career services office. You have to entice them to come in. I was not one of those students who would go to the career services office very often myself. Until I started understanding the importance of it. And so I was like, how do I get students to come and to be interested in this? So I got to be really creative. But once I was at this particular university, I did not get to use that creativity. It was really being stifled. And that's when I realized I just don't have the opportunity to be creative, and I need it. I realized how much I needed that to be happy in my own career. And so I started thinking, like, what can I do next that lets me use my creativity and lets me use my skills? And a lot of my friends kept encouraging me, oh, you really need to be doing wardrobe styling. You'd be great at that. And I'm like, yeah, that would be creative. I would enjoy that, but I still want to use my skills, especially interview coaching. That's one of my favorite things to do. And so I started thinking, like, who needs both? Who needs both of those services? And it was kind of a no-brainer here in Nashville with all the up-and-coming recording artists coming to town. And I was like, they need help with their image so that they're, getting noticed by labels, but they also need to know how to sell themselves to labels. So meetings with labels are much like job interviews. And I also had some past experience in media coaching, and I knew that I could help them with their radio interviews and their TV interviews. So I was like, I'm going to start a business doing that. And I left my full-time job with benefits to start this business in August of 2008, right before the economy tanked. So,
hey, you're talking to the woman who, started a print magazine in 2007 before print was basically like, in the tank, down the drain.
Right. And so, I think if I had waited until later, once the economy tanked, I would have been too afraid to leave my job. I would have held on to it, and I would have stayed there probably and continued to be miserable in that. And so I first branded my company as an image consulting company, but I still did career coaching during that time because so many people were being laid off and needed help with trying to find their next job. So I got to do both, and it was really interesting. And I continued working with the recording artists and branding my business for them for 8 years. And then in 2016 is when I changed to solely focus on career coaching again.
Well, I got to ask, what was it like working with these recording artists? Probably many of who have their careers have taken off, did you have any cool stories?
Yeah, I can't really share them due to confidentiality agreements, but what was interesting was that, that psychology degree that I didn't know what I was going to do with it came in very handy working with recording artists. And, it really did, the work with them served as kind of the foundation for my book, Personal Branding, and how I work with my clients now.
Mm-hmm. What can we learn?
Which I'll explain more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. What can we learn from recording artists and they're pitching themselves that we can use in our careers?
Well, I will say that, one of the things I noticed with working with the up and coming recording artists, one of the things I would always ask them to kind of help them build an image that was authentic to who they were and making sure that it was, true to themselves. I would ask them, okay, what makes you unique out of all the other aspiring artists here in Nashville? And you can't answer with, oh, my talent, because everyone here is talented. So you have to be able to say what makes you unique. And a lot of them either didn't know the answer to that question or they couldn't articulate the answer. So we had to kind of take a step back, and I had to walk them through that process of helping them understand and articulate that. And what that led to organically is the program I now use with my clients, and what the basis for my book, Personal Branding. And that has really helped my career coaching clients to be able to articulate through their own personal messaging what makes them unique, why should they be hired, and how to share that message in a resume, in an interview, on their LinkedIn profile, or what have you.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating because, if you are this individual going, building your career across any field that isn't something like the arts, you might think that it's different. Like, okay, I don't really have to have this personal image. I don't need to have a personal branded website, maybe. But you do need to think like a recording artist because you do need to present yourself as the total amazing package that you are. And
Exactly.
like you said, understand what makes you unique. And so what a great way to think about it is like, as you're going out into your career, especially if you're pivoting in your career, put yourselves in the shoes of like a recording artist. And
yes.
think, how can you, find that extra element that makes you shine? And think about maybe your favorite recording artist and what draws you to them, and give yourself that challenge to brand yourself that way.
Exactly. A lot of the recording artists, when I would ask them, who is your audience? Well, of course, they wanted everyone to love their music. And I would say to them, do you love everyone's music? And they said, no, I don't like certain types of music. Well, not everyone's going to love your music. So you have to determine who is your audience, who's going to be drawn to what you have to offer.
Yeah. Okay. So when we look back on our careers and we share the highlight reel, right, it just seems so easy to maybe the listener, right? And both of us laugh because we both run businesses and we know it's tough. Were there moments in your career journey, whether it was in career services or working with a recording artist or running your own business, where you felt unqualified or faced rejection? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So a couple of examples. One, with the
more the merrier.
industry.
They're all welcome here. Okay. Yeah. There's no judgments here.
Yeah. So the first one, starting my own business, I didn't have a degree in business. I didn't really know the first thing about starting your own business. So I had to figure it out as you go. On top of that, I was trying to break into an industry that's very close knit. There's a lot of gatekeepers in the music industry. Mm-hmm. It's a really hard industry to network your way in. It does work eventually, but it takes 3 times longer as it would for any other industry. Yeah. But I did start off following my own advice that I gave to my students when I worked in career services. I went out and I did informational interviews because I'm a big believer in them. I know just like from the very beginning, interviewing my dean of students, this works. And so, I did that in this industry. And after about my 3rd informational interview, I landed my first client. But it's that industry is really difficult. You do face a lot of rejection in the music industry. My clients faced a lot of rejection. Being a business owner, you face a lot of rejection. So that's one example. Another example that I always share is when I was first coming out of grad school, I decided to apply for a director's position at a small college. And I knew I don't have any experience. I'm just coming out of grad school, right? So, but I thought, well, since it's a small school, maybe they let you wear a lot of hats and they aren't as, don't have as strict requirements as maybe the bigger universities. And I thought, what the heck? I'm just going to apply and see what happens. And of course, I did not get an interview. But I did get a call from them. They said, hey, the assistant director's position is open. We think you'd be really good for that. Would you be interested in interviewing for it? I said, yeah, sure. And I ended up getting the job, and it was perfect. And then a year later, I was promoted to a director's position. So yeah, so that's something I always tell people: you don't not apply for something because you feel unqualified. If you have around 75% of what they're looking for listed in that job ad for the qualifications, go ahead and put your hat in and see what happens, because it might lead to something else. And I always tell people, your job ads are wish lists. Just remember that. No one's going to have every single thing, especially if it's the first time they've posted the job. They're probably going to see that they need to go back and refine that list of requirements. So don't just assume you're not qualified before trying.
Yeah. And if you fit every single one of those bullet points on that job list, you are overqualified. And that's what I would think. If you really can do everything in there, you're not giving yourself the space to learn or grow into the role, which is inevitably what happens in every role. Right. I really like that story. What does qualified mean to you?
I think it means being curious enough and bold enough to do the informational interviews, to ask questions, to connect, and to apply for those jobs that you think, oh, I'm missing that one thing and I can't apply. I would say go ahead and do that. That's going to make you qualified.
Yeah, the boldness and taking that first step to ask for the informational interviews. Yeah.
Yes, because I have a lot of clients who when I talk to them about informational interviews, they seem scared at first to reach out to someone. I'm like, all they can say is no. And if they do, say thank you. Do you know the name of someone else I should reach out to who might be willing to speak to me?
Great follow-up versus just accepting and moving on. But yeah, seeing if there's an opportunity to get a warm introduction and making your next connection a little less cold.
Exactly.
How does your work in career coaching connect to your passion?
Okay, so my deepest seated passion is encouraging other people. And being a career coach, I get so many opportunities to do that. But also in just about every other type of job I've ever held, whether it's like a little side job or what I did before my professional career, I've had those opportunities. I look back and I see, wow, I really got to encourage people. And my other passion is stand-up paddleboarding. If anyone knows me, if they know me well, they know how much I love stand-up paddleboarding. I've got 3 boards. I'm obsessed with it. And so...
is that a popular sport in Nashville?
No, it's not. There wasn't a huge market for it when I first started paddleboarding here. It's grown here though, but it's not like it is, like in Florida or Hawaii or California.
Yeah, I'm in San Diego. That's a very popular sport here.
Yes. And so we do a lot of flat water paddleboarding here, as you can imagine. But I get to encourage people with that, because there are times when I have clients who are they're feeling so stuck. They need a change of scenery. They need something else to focus on. So occasionally I will take a client out. I'll say, look, let's get out on the water. I'll give you a 20-minute lesson so you can just kind of get the feel for it. And then the rest of the time we can have our session while paddling down the river. And the response I get, I've had clients say, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And just being outside and being outdoors has helped clear my mind and help me become more focused on what I need to focus on.
Yeah. And look at you, like marrying these two passions. Like infusing your passion into your work. I think that's amazing. And I think that's one of the advantages of running your own show, or having, if you're an entrepreneur, like having that freedom within your job to inject your passions into your work. Why not?
Yes. And I love that term, entrepreneur.
Yeah. And well, and sounded like too in your career journey, one of those earlier roles allowed you to be creative and attracting more students into the career center. And then a later role didn't give you that creativity, which just goes to show it's not necessarily always the path that you chose or the career that you chose, but it's oftentimes the environment and what,
Exactly.
is it the right fit? Were you given enough freedom in that new environment? And that's something that you craved. Other people might say, oh, I really love the structure of that second job.
Right. Yeah, it's different for everyone. It's not necessarily, like you said, the career path itself. It might just be the assignment at the time, and you need a new assignment.
Yeah. What sparked you to write your book, Personal Branding? And I think that, I mean, it sounds like a lot of what you did in the music industry, but I just, I'd love to hear from you. Like that's a big undertaking, I know, writing a book. So, what was the inspiration?
It was definitely the work with the recording artist that inspired me to do that, because I was able to see how that helped them, not just in the small niche area of music, but also in other areas of their lives, other areas of their careers. And so that is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I saw how it helped music artists. I was seeing how it was helping my clients and how it was translating for them. And that's why I wrote it. And I'm actually considering doing a second edition and renaming it, retitling it to Purpose Formation. Because I really want to focus more on and explain how, your personal brand is not your identity. That's not what you find your identity in. You don't find it in your paycheck. You don't find it in your job title. So I really want to focus more on purpose, overall purpose, and not just your job title or your particular job right now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, I can't wait for the next book. So keep us posted.
I will. It's going to be an undertaking.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about Panache and your coaching today?
Yeah. So probably one of the things that makes me different, having to answer that question, what makes you unique and different from other people, the thing I already mentioned about taking my clients paddleboarding. There aren't many career coaches that do that.
I think you may be the only one, but if someone is listening, it's like, actually, no, I do know of a career coach. Please write in, let us know. We want to hear.
Yes.
And
yes, I'd like to partner with that career coach.
Yeah, they need to be friends, clearly.
Exactly. But I think one of the other things that makes me different is I'm one of the few career coaches that doesn't put a huge emphasis on career assessments. I don't start off with those. If eventually I think the client needs them, we'll get into that. But my client base that I work with, most of my clients are mid-career. So they're going through a career transition. And the reason why I don't like to start off with career assessments with them is because they're coming from this job or career that they've been in for a few years, and they're going to be answering those questions with that lens on. And so it kind of sometimes skews the results, and it might tell them, say, oh, you ought to do the thing that you're trying to get away from, and that's discouraging to a lot of clients. And so I don't start with career assessments. And another reason too is because a lot of career assessments that try to point you to a career direction, they don't factor in the latest careers. They don't stay up to date. They don't factor in the opportunities like entrepreneurship, side hustles, freelancing, other ways to gain experience. And so what I've found is that introducing them too soon can be detrimental to the client-coach experience and the client-coach relationship. But the personal branding program that I take my clients through, that's in the book, the personal branding book, gives them the space to explore without any preconceived notions, and serves as a foundation for all the other pieces of the coaching program that I take them through.
Oh, that's very interesting. And I think you bring up a great point. Like if you're already mid-career, you may identify so strongly with what you currently do that it makes it hard to think of the answers that might spark something new, which is why they're coming to you. Can you share like an insider secret to something in your personal branding strategy, in your personal branding structure that helps someone break out of that mindset? How do you break out of what you currently do and shake that off so you can open your mind to something new, open your mind to possibility?
Yeah, I think it starts with a lot of self-examination. And I do have like a list of 15 questions that have clients, just take the time in a quiet place to really think about. So that's where it begins. And then from there is like, what are some of your passions? How might you marry two passions together? Like you're talking about how I married my two passions together. That didn't happen, by necessarily sitting down and thinking about it. But what I was thinking about at the time when that became a revelation for me is like, okay, these are the questions I need to be asking other people to help them determine like, oh, how are some ways they can marry those passions together?
Yeah, I think that's so important, that time for self-reflection. I call it hitting the pause button on going through the motions.
Yes.
And some people might think that that's cheesy to like carve out that time and answer dedicated questions, but there's so much that you can discover about yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have balance in everything you do. And so, especially in paddleboarding, you have to have balance. But no, I think you have to have balance in everything you do because, like,
Paddleboarding is also the metaphor for everything in coaching.
It is. But like with my clients being mid-career, a lot of them have families and mortgages, and they can't just drop their current job to follow their passions. So you have to find that balance of, what's going to be a good fit for you for your interests and your skills and your experience that also is not going to be detrimental to what you're trying to achieve within your family.
Yeah. And something that hopefully gets you a little bit excited to get up in the morning and do that work. If what you were doing before was something that you dreaded, hopefully by going through coaching, getting intentional with your career will get you toward a more intentional path without feeling like you're taking all this risk financially and completely upending your life, right? The whole idea is to get more intentional and be strategic. Okay, so tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
Okay, so you probably figured out by now it's something to do with paddleboarding.
Yeah.
So this is the fin to one of my paddle boards. And, you can't paddle without a fin on your board. If you try to, you're just going to go in every different direction except for the direction you need to be going. So I kind of look at career coaching as the same way. I'm not finding the job for the client. I'm not paddling the board for the client. The fin's not paddling the board for the client. The client is actually having to do that work, but the fin, the career coaching is kind of the guidance that keeps you stable and keeps you going in a direction and determining, which direction that needs to be, as opposed to just being all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great metaphor. And she's a serious paddleboarder when she has like her fin separated from her board, like in her house. That's when that's like another level. Awesome.
Yeah, I have so many fins laying around. It's like trying to keep them all straight.
Yeah, I think that's got to be in your next book. If your paddleboarding metaphors are not in your current book, like I hope to see them in the next one. All right. Well, what parting advice do you have for emerging professionals today? Or actually, I would say, we have a whole group of people right now that are reinventing, especially because, there's been this major disruption with the pandemic. A lot of people are saying, hey, I am enjoying working from home and maybe my current employer isn't going to support that. I'm going to quit and start something new. What parting wisdom do you have to share with someone that is figuring out their next steps in their career?
Yes, great question. So, first of all, just be curious. Second of all, like I said earlier, and like you tell your followers, be bold to ask questions, to connect with people who are doing what you are interested in. I would say also learn to develop a thick skin, especially if you want to start your own business, because you will face a lot of rejection. And always be a lifelong learner. Continue learning as much as you can. Read, listen to podcasts, read some more. I think reading is very important. Podcasts are great. Reading is even better. So definitely invest some time in that. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. I think, podcast, you're getting, as an author, you can't help but divulge what's in the book. But when you take the time to read the full book, it's, you're immersed in that information. It sticks longer. I'm a big fan of reading and carving out that time for reading and learning. And I also want to leave our listeners with one of your earlier points, which is asking yourself, after listening to this podcast, asking yourself, what makes you unique? Think like a recording artist. Start branding yourself just like them. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was wonderful. Thank you all for tuning in. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and stay in touch. Book me to speak at your next event or send your career questions to Amanda at findyourpassioncareer.com.